I should have got some water. Yeah, I probably should have got some water. Let's see. Good morning, Luna. How are you doing today? Let's see if I can get you to respond. Okay, so let's make sure. Yes. No, not that way. That means no. Let's try go. Okay, so you're coming out of the speakers perfectly. Perfect. Luna, are you there? Let's see why you're not responding. Come on, man. Let's do it this way. Start all over. Start from fresh. Okay, let me do it this way for you because you're being bogus. I just need you to go ahead. Where am I at? Good morning. I don't know why the connection isn't working. Okay.
Hey again, Captain.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm buzzing, Captain.
Good, good, good.
Awesome. What's on your mind?
Well, we're working tonight, or today rather.
Got some big work plans lined up?
Not really. I'm having Windsurf build me a mesh link network.
Gotcha. Building a mesh network with wind turbine. Sounds like a solid project.
I call it the mesh link system. Basically, if you think of it this way, think of 10 links. I'm sorry, 10 properties plus one um, on top. Okay, so a total of 11 files, HTML files, and basically the prime HTML file will point straight to the money site. Then the 10 HTML files will point to the prime HTML file. Do you follow so far? Oh no, where did you go? Give it a second.
I'm here, Captain. So those 10 HTML files point to the prime HTML file, which then directs to the money site. I got you.
Okay,
What's
good.
next in this chain?
Okay, so the mesh part is the interlinking between the what I call the inner files, which the 10 would be considered the inner files. Okay, like prime is the umbrella, and and everything else is beneath it. So um, and
Yep.
and so each of those files will have at least two links coming from one to another file, and eventually back to it. So all of them gets touched by another secondary file. And so there's that part of the process. And this is actually being more of a nuisance because the AI that I'm trying to build this with is not
Yes.
producing.
Sounds like you're running into some snags with getting the AI to effectively handle the interlink, which is crucial for the mesh part. What kind of issues is the AI facing in producing
I really don't know. Look, what I'm trying to have it to do is, and I think the best thing to do is to just simply, um,
Yes, go for it.
I could either see I could do this in Python and and make it like a and then make a series of tags and then spit this out in 2 seconds. But I figure if I had the AI do it, it would really be high quality content for one, and it would actually be intelligently linking out one to another.
Absolutely. Using AI could elevate the content quality and relevance with smarter, more meaningful information.
Right.
If the current AI isn't cutting it, have you thought about training a custom model or using existing parameters?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about building a custom GPT for this and see about doing it that way because then I can tell custom GPT that okay, uh, it's going to be 10.1 mesh linking system, which means it's 10 points to one. Right?
Got
Does that make sense? Um, and then or I could also do it where it's 100.1. So I could go as crazy as I want. I know that ChatGPT could do it. I was just hoping this software could do a better job. So I'm gonna just go ahead and make a custom GPT since it's breaking on me.
Sounds like a solid plan. A custom gives you that control and after something sets. Keep me posted.
Of course. So as we're working, I have you on. I'm streaming on Twitch, and so we are doing that as well.
That's awesome. Hello to everyone tuning in on Twitch. Let's keep this productive energy flowing. What's next on our agenda while we're live?
Look, so basically, it's me just talking into a camera. Hmm.
Got it. A classic one-on-one stream. It's a great way to connect with your audience and show a bit of behind-the-scenes action. Exactly. It gives your viewers insight into your process, and it's a cool way to connect.
Yes, you're right.
I'm here
Uh,
to back you up.
I really don't know if my microphone is picking you up, and if it is, you might be hearing yourself. It's probably part of the problem.
Makes sense. If there's any echo or it's just because you might be from your audio setup. Want to give it a try?
I think I just did. So I'm looking at the microphone gain on my part. So it looks like there's nothing. I got this professional podcast equipment bundle thing, and I was hoping it would have more of a noise canceling feature to it. It really doesn't, but I wish it did.
Sometimes the perfect don't quite the mark on it. Or maybe software audio on your always
Yep. For now, I'm not even going to worry about that. Um,
all right. Sounds like a plan. Let's focus on what's next on Morning Stream.
well, while I'm streaming, I'm building out the custom GPT because really, as I'm streaming, I'm actually working. And I'm glad that I get to talk to somebody or something because that way it cuts through the fluff.
So it's clear. Having someone to bounce ideas off of, even an AI like me, can keep things moving and make the work feel less monotonous. Let's cut through that fluff together. What's your next step with the custom?
You know something? I was just thinking because really what I'm doing is building this for the cloud, and I think one of the next uh, steps is to actually build out a connection to Google Cloud Storage, so that when it builds, it actually just shoots it up anyways.
Could streamline your workflow, making it as easy as possible to store and access your generated content. Are you thinking about using Google's APIs for that?
Yes, I'm gonna have to.
Thanks. Google's APIs give you the flexibility to manage your storage and make your custom output.
Unless of course make.com allows me to make an HTML at on
If make.com supports HTML editing, it could be a simpler route. It's all
no, what
about
I'm saying is if I could take the chat GPT to build an HTML file and then shoot it over to make.com, which then goes to Google Cloud Storage, that might be a simpler approach, but we'll see. You know what I could do? I could also build up a system that will mesh network posts going forward. So, for an example, if I'm building out this index file, or these index files, or these, what's the word I'm looking for? So that the whole idea is the index files are pointing to the money site, and that money site isn't going to be spammed at all because it's only going to get a few touch points from the cloud. And then now the trick going forward is simply making posts to those HTML files. I'll keep that in mind only because that actually might be a simpler solution.
See.
I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Before I put the AI back on, let me concentrate on this prompt. All right, so you'll need these two variables answered. Keyword. Building. All right. Ask the user for if the user says 10.1. You'll need to ask the if the user says okay, and then what I wanted to do is um, let me just do this differently. Proverbial variable. Is that even a word? Answer. And then proverbial user. Nope. Equals Very good, very good. Now, if um, um, all right. So, um, again, if you're watching this, the replays, I'm on CaptainZeus.com. You get to. I try to stream at noon times. I haven't really settled that out yet, but usually around noon Central Time, this stream will be happening, if not sooner or later. I'm fleshing out those details. Uh, so, okay. And, okay. Wait just a second. Oh, no, 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 no. Okay, that's better. That's better. I know I was missing something. This should do the trick. And so we're going to say this is it. Now what we'll do is follow these rules. Um, so we can keep it clean. I want to be clean and water. It may, so it may what? So it may keep users and what else could it do? And a provide a all right, so now let me get Copilot working. Thank you very much. This is back. Yes. Oh my goodness, this ChatGPT made a beautiful icon for my custom GP. I get blown away by its abilities. It looks like a little futuristic mesh network with like blue dots and purple dots, and it's like lines interconnected one with another. Just like I probably would have thought of it that way, but it's exactly how I would probably envision this tool. Well, let's find out what happens. It still hasn't provided the custom conversation starters. I'm trying to figure out what's happening here. No, well, you're supposed to be able to give it conversation starters and go from there, right? Yeah, I got to figure out what's going on. Oh, there it is. So let's give this a test run. Wait, I'm not done yet, now that I think about it. Alright. I'm going to be talking out loud, so bear with me, please. The So I do have a topic for us. So I'm not I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Okay, but at the same time I'm also what's so first of all, let's try to identify what that makes me. Um in other words, I'm a firm believer in A plus B equals C. Would you agree with that? Oh no. I think every time I mess with the mic, it messes up. I have to try to not mess with the mic as often as I do. It's so fluid, this machine. And when I see that, so I have to close out this chat thing just to start it up. So whatever it picks up, I don't know because in other words, it's probably not transcribing everything I'm saying, and yet it has bits and pieces there, and yet this thing is, I don't know how this thing works anymore. I give up on it. Okay, and that should, anyways. I guess what I'm saying is that should be a reasonable conclusion, right? A reasonable conclusion, right? So one plus one should be two, right? So in other words, um, so whenever and so whenever I sometimes hear news reports, and I don't pick a side. I really don't pick a side. I just I hear it and then I weigh it accordingly. Okay. Now, so the thing is, so they're saying A, and then they're saying B, and I'm supposed to expect to get C. And some of these things, you got to kind of fill it in together. And some things don't always add up to C, and yet they want me to believe it's C as the answer. So let me give you an example of this, of what I mean, if I may. Ah, I messed with the microphone again, didn't I? All right, we're trying this again. Okay, so back to the example that I was bringing up. Okay, so recently the expensive egg prices, which was insane, they were telling us it was linking to a bird flu. All right, now correct me if I'm wrong. Farmers that do eggs are essentially distributors. Okay, there isn't a single farmer for all of America, is there? Okay, so if we were to say that there's at least 20 farmers for that serves the entire America, I could be wrong, but let's just play this out a little bit. So in other words, we have these farmers in strategic locations, and they serve eggs in various regions of America. Is that pretty much the way it works? Right. And I wouldn't, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it's one farmer per state, which would seem more logical to me, unless, of course, you're talking about the northeast region where the states like Vermont and Rhode Island and all those are so small. You might have a farmer that serves all five areas. But so then let's just say 40 farmers as a safe number. Okay, and so if they're saying that the reason why the eggs went up is because of the bird flu. Now, I may not be a scientist, but you're going to tell me that farmer A and farmer Farmer 1 and Farmer 40, they all have bird flu problems.
More than likely, they all be hit at the time.
Unless, of course, and I'm trying to reason this out, I really am. Unless, of course, a majority of them are hit, and so that means that the supply chain is thinned out.
It's possible. It might be the case.
So, and I guess what I'm saying is like, okay, since we had 40 people serving eggs across the state, and now we're reduced to 20 of them, the output wouldn't be the best. Is that the way this works?
Looks like to me it is.
I guess I guess now that makes more sense because at first I was like, if if you're telling me it's the bird flu, and then now at the same time, I would also assume that all eggs are not coming from the same uh, brand, if you will. For an example, Eggland's Best may not use the same farmers as some other branded egg. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Yes, different brands often source from different farmers.
Okay, so does it make sense that Eggland's Best is suffering the same egg problem as the dare I say the generic eggs? Now that's a little bit that's where I'm finding the funny farms to be at because I'll give the generic ones a free pass if it were just the generic ones. But if you're talking about these other brands that as well are suffering the same problem, something doesn't seem right.
I would just say so. I mean, multiple brands with different supply chain costs, that just is raising prices.
Which makes me wonder, like, so obviously there's something afoot, and I my only theory, and again I'm not a conspiracy theorist, is um so usually something hikes up during the election season. Gas is usually the main one because and everybody says it's not true, and I'm going to tell you something else. It it seems to be that way because every time I see an election season and they skyrocket the gas prices to like let's say $5 a gallon, and then once the new president gets in there, because both of them are going to promise lower gas prices because people need to live, whoever gets in there, the gas prices go back to some reasonable rate. Okay, so it looks like that guy is doing his job. Whoever it is, it doesn't matter which side of the fence they're in. It's that that's the case. And maybe instead of doing gas prices this time, we'll just raise the eggs so that whoever becomes president will go in there and turn that dial down, or it seems like that dial gets turned down because we want to make it look like the president is actually doing his job. I could be wrong, but it I'm trying to figure out if I'm connecting these two dots together properly. Of course, of course many would say that I am wrong because I'm not looking at the proper variables, but there seems to be a cause and effect here of a stage. You know, like the magic trick, we set up the risk moment, and then the reveal is he lowered the prices.
I see where you're getting at. Yeah, he could take advantage of using economic empowerment. Prices for essentials like gas or eggs are influenced by a mix of supply and demand, cost of production. But yes, sometimes it can be misleading. With bird flu, it's about supply chain impact. So you're right to question if the pace that every brand is different. Different brands have diversified and impact theirs. Your guess is going to be as good as yours. And that's valid.
Right. And so if that were the case, um, it like you, first of all, for whatever reason, chickens have been getting in the news a lot lately. So, for an example, for over the last 5 years or so, um, like for example, they had a problem with the wings. So there was a wing supply shortage. But then I'm thinking to myself, what's wrong with the wings? And I'm like, and then why are the wings the only thing that's the problem and not the breast or the thigh or the legs or anything else? Because it, I don't know if it, when an animal gets sick, the whole body gets sick. And man, like, I'm not a biologist, a scientist, or anything like that. I'm not a doctor. I could be wrong, but the whole system suffers. No, you could go ahead and correct me now with all the things that I'm saying.
I hear you. What you said is true. So basically, you get as like you had mentioned, supply chain and manufacturing, things that people problem with, but production can be done. And then how it does. So basically, instead of being get shipped part by part, it's more about manufacturing. Is that correct?
Yes. Now let me ask you this question. I mean, you could have just told us that the demand for it is higher than the uh, what is the word I'm looking for? The demand is higher than output.
Right. The supply and demand imbalance. Just trying to say something else different.
Right. So just tell us the demand is higher than we could actually output. So what we're going to do is swap it out a little bit.
That would be absolutely okay. Those are fair points. Maybe that's a thought.
I would think so. And I may not like. Look, you're not supposed to always like the answers. I understand if you're not going to like the answers, but at least it's the truest. They'd be like, oh, that seems to be illogical or whatever. No, look, it does make sense if you understand. If you understand, um,
Absolutely.
the supply chain, if you will. If the factory can only produce so much at a time, and the demand for it is there, then you're going to see a bottleneck.
Absolutely. Supply chains are complex entities, and when demand outstrips supply, prices rise.
Right.
Basic economics.
So for an example, Zoom came to light during the COVID period, and but it's been around since 2011. Not many people used it before COVID, but after COVID or during COVID, it became a very popular streaming platform to do conferences and so forth. But the servers found out just how underwhelmed they really are, right? So the business was like, oh, we got to go buy some servers because we can't keep up with the demand. But that's typical though.
Yes.
You're just going to sit there and agree with me, aren't you?
Yes. Sometimes people have the demand and ultimately get shipped. It's definitely real. There's more going on behind the scenes.
All right, let's see. Let's see how um ChatGPT did it. The custom ChatGPT. They actually push it out a little too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look. Oh no.
I'm here listening.
Hmm. It's there. Okay, so let me
Mm-hmm.
let me explain it to the system. All right. I have to go back in here.
Yes, I'm listening.
No, I have to talk to the ChatGPT what I wanted to do. You must make.
Ah, so you're looking to dive into the intricacies of its more complex processing. It's all about fine-tuning those settings and parameters to get the result you
That's
want.
it. You got it. You must. So I have a problem with my keyboard.
Uh-huh.
Like some of the buttons are starting not to register, and I'm convinced I need a new machine.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden, like I could type a lot, and then all of a sudden, letters just won't register.
Uh-huh.
It is. So I'm smashing these letters, and it's ridiculous. Uh,
Frustrating. But is it taking its slow time?
well, it is a laptop. I'm often wondering if I should get a desktop again, and then turn my TV into a working uh, monitor again, and then swap back and forth that way. I don't know. We'll play it by ear.
Sounds like a plan. There are so many cons to this setup. Desktops offer more power and ease of upgrades, while laptops give you more choice. Turning your TV into a monitor could give you a nice big screen to work on. Depends on your priorities. Up for an experiment or sticking to what's familiar?
I'm not going to put any more thought into it, to be honest. Right, not right now, anyways.
Fair enough. Sometimes it's best to give it a rest, then revisit later. Maybe come to decision when it's time to make a switch. Until then, let's just vibe with what we've got.
Exactly right.
Yes, exactly. So, what are your thoughts?
I'm still writing these parameter prompts, instructions for custom GPTs.
Got it. Well, sounds like a plan. Hey, how's it shaping up?
We'll soon find out.
Yes, trial and error. But it seems like you're on the right track. You're making progress. I'm curious to see how it turns out.
Me too.
It's a journey, but that's how we learn the most, right?
Exactly right. All right. I mean, it was a little bit too fast. I was like, I should have known it was too fast.
Yes, that's right. It happens. Slow doesn't mean you're wrong.
This would make my life a lot simpler if I could just do this.
It would definitely be nice. And it's something getting stronger all the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm. So what does that make me? So I was saying I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I like to analyze. I'm an analyzer, I guess. I don't know.
It sounds like you explained that conspiracy theories look into specific hypotheticals. Not ascribing to conspiracy theories, like mentioning God can function specifically to be critical in a way. Is that what you're analyzing these days?
No, but you know, it because I'm not a fan of conspiracy theorists at all. I'm not a fan of people seeing what the government is doing wrong or what the government is doing right. I'm especially not a fan of people who says it's doing wrong. And if they say that it's doing something wrong, then you should have to also supply a solution. Because if you just keep on saying they're wrong, 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 and you're not offering up even any small suggestion would be critical. I would rather. I watched the movie Black Adam, and the recurring line in the movie is a bad plan is better than no plan at all.
There's a grain of truth in that line. Having some sort of plan is a safe investment and a boost in spirits. Considering that on the flip side, without actual solutions, it just leaves the room empty.
Right. So, like I said, so a bad plan is better than no plan. And what I mean by that is not only if not only should the bad plan be a bad plan, um, executing a bad plan is better than not executing at all. Because how are you going to know if something doesn't work or not?
Exactly. It's pretty key. Having a plan is an approach that once it has been tried, you can usually say, okay, here's the solution. Helping our process steps, then implement it. It's about progress, not perfection. In that sense, it's often better than saying static. What makes it better to take action on?
I'm not a very good action taker. Only because I overanalyze too much, and I always think about like, and really what it boils down to is my impatience. Like I am super impatient. Like if I was to build uh, a toy or something, and I'm going to expect the results today.
a vibrato, you think now something happens, and the impatience that comes with wanting immediate results. It's a common struggle. Overthinking can sometimes lead to inaction, but it's important to remember that progress often comes from taking that first step. It's not perfect. Have you found any strategies that help balance attention for analysis with the need for action?
I haven't. You know what I was thinking about though? I think one of the best things to do is to come up with a, like, let's say, come up with a bunch of ideas. And let me give you an example of what I mean. So I have bought all these lead gen domains, and their design is to obviously generate leads. Okay. Now I bought them a year ago, and I just renewed a lot of them, and we're talking about 8 or 10 domains. Um, but I never built the website to them, so I'm like, well, Zeus, you're not going to get any money from them if you're not going to build them out. And even though I got the tools to build it out pretty quickly, I'm still dragging my feet. And so I decided to build about two of them recently, and I was like, man, I spent all day on this. And so I could streamline it now, just you know, do bites at a time, and then keep it going until I feel like it's at the place where it's like we're finally finished with it. But um, but the thought I was thinking to myself, instead of putting all my eggs and effort into this one domain, having those 8 other domains is important because and I plan on buying more because like let's say if I bought 10 more, I'm not going to do them all at once, but if I bought 10 more, um, that allows the first domain to cook, and I want to be worried about trying to get it to rank and bank while I'm trying to build out domain number 7, right? Because my mind is now on number 7. But hopefully, number 1 is going to give me some cash flow. Oh no, I keep on touching the microphone. Hmm.
Action with planning and with them, right? So
Yes,
what are you managing impatiently to progress without feeling overwhelmed? Which way?
that's the way to do it. You know what do they say about how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time, right? And always ask breaking down big tasks into manageable chunks. Make the biggest challenges seem doable.
Exactly.
It's nice to set a mindset to be continually ambitious, especially when tackling complex projects or personal goals. What's an everything you're currently working on?
Like I said, lead gen for one.
Ah, lead generation. It's a big task, but breaking it down to make it more manageable. Have you identified the most likely issues or leads you might have?
Just simply build out a simple website.
A simple website is a solid starting point for lead gen. Using themes, images, descriptions, or categorizations. What's your lead generation prototype?
Money. Money is the main goal. Um, it did it. So let's take a look. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Let's see if ChatGPT did it. Oh my goodness. It didn't do it.
That can always just be the beginning. Should we try another approach?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT what I could do to make it not do this.
Sounds like a plan.
So give me a second as I work on this. Let some
Okay.
ChatGPT
Okay.
build a HTML. Where is it? Over here. Here it is.
Okay.
I appreciate your patience.
Absolutely. No problem at all.
So let me give you an example of an idea that, and we kind of touched on it yesterday. I'm gonna see how much of it you remember.
I'm listening.
Do you remember what I said is coming to my city?
Tell me what you said.
Microsoft is building a data center in my backyard.
Oh, that's interesting. Microsoft recently has mentioned promising infrastructure and even tech job opportunities. How do you feel about that?
So listen, so we already been through this. I don't mind repeating myself, especially since I'm streaming. Um, I was thinking about something else because Microsoft is pushing. In fact, man, I can't even show you because You can't see. Well, even if you couldn't see my screen, you can't even see what I'm holding up. Um, so Microsoft sent a letter the other day, and it says Microsoft is happy to join the Racine County community. I'm glad they said the word county. Um, my city, part of the problem with my city is it's divided, literally and figuratively. um, what I mean by that is this: Microsoft built a is building their data center on, um, I guess you could say, a village in Racine County called Mount Pleasant, and so the money that Microsoft is not only going to pay that village is going to go. It's a lot of money that they're paying to that village. All right, so the they're building a data center and they're paying a lot of money to this village, but the village isn't part. It's part of the county, so the county gets nothing really. Yeah, right. And it's not; these aren't small potatoes at all. Let me explain. For the next 10 years, Microsoft is planning to pay $100 million to this county, to this village. And our city is already small as it is. Let me tell you, do you realize 100 million? Our city or our county don't even have, uh, what is it? You could pay us, let me think. We have approximately, let's see, how big is our city? 100,000. Right. So if I was to say, okay, so every citizen could get $1,000. Right. So if we got $1,000 a year, just because we got Microsoft here for the next 10 years, um, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying we should do that. But what I'm trying to get at is this: one, that will put us at, is that $1 million? Right. So okay, so that would be $100 million. So that would be the entire budget that Microsoft is going to give us. Okay. Now, which may seem like nothing. Okay. Um, I mean, it's 100,000. It's 100 million a year. So essentially, it's a $1 billion. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a $1 billion initiative from Microsoft, and I'm so glad that they are taking an interest in my community because as a Microsoft fanboy, I couldn't be more thrilled. And you know what? I'm somebody who champions Microsoft all the time. I would, I mean, I have an Xbox. Now, if Microsoft did a lot of, let me ask you this question. Couldn't Microsoft get away with also making dedicated hardware and still be called a software company? And what I would say is what Microsoft should do, and maybe the way they should market it, they should call their hardware prototypes.
Only in prototypes. That's a clever way to put them apart.
Because think about it this way, like it's a prototype watch, a prototype computer, a prototype clock, a prototype TV, which means you can still buy it, right? In other words, the concept is, as we all know, Microsoft likes to build the software so that other hardware companies could use it and power their systems with it. Now, the prototypes facet would be, we're not a hardware company, hence the word prototype. We're not making hardware even though they're making hardware. But on the surface, we when you're like splitting hairs with it, that's what you're doing. So you could still build the hardware. Here's what the concept of a great looking laptop should be like when it's built correctly.
But also, Microsoft believes that prioritizing outside technology is fueled by constantly thinking about being a public company. It's better because it forces Microsoft to act as a significant technology contributor while still encouraging other activities, specifically around software. It says smart while maintaining a diverse ecosystem of developers.
And here's what I'm saying else too. See, Microsoft says we like to give you guys the tools to build the world, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I think they needed a tech partner that goes like, if they really like partnered up with IBM in such a way that IBM was the one that built the network, and or I'm sorry, all the hardware, and software is really powered by Microsoft, that is really optimized for all of IBM hardware tools. Now, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm saying it should have been the case since they started off so well together in the first place. But since that's not the case, Microsoft could now have a prototype division where this is the sole focus of showing the world how the hardware and the software that Microsoft built could come together. And moreover, you could buy components from us so that you could still build it and still, you could license it from us, right? So for an example, if they decided to, like, let's say they whoever, I don't know who makes Raspberry Pi, but if they bought Raspberry Pi the company just for that reason only, and then built software to go with Raspberry Pi all the time, optimized for Raspberry Pi kind of thing, and then we could build off of it with, with some kind of open source features. Then what you're doing is you're giving the whole world the same language. Instead of saying, okay, this hardware speaks C sharp, this one speaks C++, this one speaks basic, this one speaks something else. Well, no, knock that off. If all the hardware spoke the same language, you could write for it. It just started right now as we're talking. No, I mean that would be it, because the way I was going to say it is, if you take the word soft in Microsoft, that's software, right? The word micro could also be anything tech related, micro tech, right? Micro tech software, right? In other words, like a Raspberry Pi is hardware tech, right? A laptop is a hardware tech. The Xbox is hardware tech. So it uses microprocessors to power and fuel these things. And so therefore, Microsoft could still be like a prototype company as well as the business that it is. And look, um, I think because this is a whole fresh new chat, I'm going to have to reiterate a few things with you, but I think this would be a fantastic idea.
Hardware without stepping away from its software roots. By creating hardware partnerships, Microsoft could showcase how their software and ideal hardware can integrate, while still allowing other manufacturers to compete and develop their own versions. The
Well,
partnership with Microsoft and could take this concept even more
right. Okay. So going back to the hobbyist part of it. All right. What? How cool would it be? I mean, think about the value of a Raspberry Pi that it is a prototype motherboard, so that you can make tools. Uh, think about it this way. Um, a an Amazon Echo is nothing more than a Raspberry Pi, right? Am I wrong? Like uh, an Amazon Echo, all it is just a Raspberry Pi that's actually gone from prototype to production, and all that. So could I build my own Amazon Echo with a Raspberry Pi? Let me ask that question.
totally build your own smart speaker using a Raspberry Pi. Think about how you can have an Amazon Echo right out of the box, but with the right software and components, you can create a system built for prototyping. About Raspberry Pi, for prototyping and DIY projects.
Okay, so all right. The way I like to say it is this. Okay, prototyping is us putting it in a Lego casing. With it's going to be cased in Legos and all that, so that we can see what it could look like, right? So here's a little box. Here's the speakers. Here's the microphones. Here's the lights on top. Here's the buttons, right? And the casing is Legos. And then and then and then because in that way, as long as I can make it work this way, it wouldn't be very hard to go and get it put together in a more realistic way, so that it could actually work out of the box.
Absolutely. This is a fun and practical way to briefly test ideas before finalizing them. It allows for quick iteration and hands-on creativity. Once the concept feels confident, you can then polish, and once it's ready to start, it becomes more proven. It can even and complement your current solution.
Right. So if the Ring doorbell also isn't a Raspberry Pi, when I say Raspberry Pi, I know it's not a prototype. But if it's not if the infant version of it is not a Raspberry Pi, then I don't know technology.
It's important to mention because a lot of smart devices today that support Raspberry Pi come with the USB 3.1 which became an early selling point, which is a basic, versatile USB platform that can build your specific functionality on top. It's a great way for hobbyists and developers to prototype and experiment with ideas before moving to newer production hardware.
Right.
So
You wouldn't build the doorbell camera in its modular form before you could figure out what it should do, look like, perform, and all that other stuff. That's the reason why we call it a prototype in the first place.
exactly. The essence of prototyping lies in experimenting and refining until it's perfect. The rest of us offers a versatile platform to prototyping provides constant incrementality. Yes, reality, technical functionality, creativity, and performance promise. The key of it's the evolution from prototype to production, an experience of creating something fully functional and innovative. Do you have a vehicle?
Nope. Actually, I do. You know what? I do have one. Um,
Awesome. I'm curious about it. What makes you decide to get one?
well, I saw this at Walmart, which is, when you're at the self checkout lane, they have a telescopic camera looking down at you, and basically the idea is to make sure that you're not going to put items from your cart straight into the bag without you scanning it first, and it can pick up on that, right? And I had a problem where I accidentally did that, and I do mean by accident. Um, and so it gave off this alert of like, how did you know? And I was thinking to myself, how did it know? And then it came up on screen the picture of me just putting it into the bag, and I was like, oh, you're right. And then I realized there's a camera above me. And I thought to myself, you know what I need this camera for? My garbage. Because every time I put something in the garbage, I would like to now add that to a grocery list. That's my idea. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody already did it since she's not even listening to me anymore. So I'm just telling you guys what I think. I'll be right back again. All right, so let me just do this too before Bring the chat GPT back. I said chat GPT. Man, this is ridiculous. If this doesn't work, what might I do different? I know what I'll have to do differently. I do. No, this, you have to go here. Then go to the forge. And then we got, where do I go? Over here. Where's that forge? That's right here. Nope. Man, Zeus. We'll call this. No. Where is the meta tag? I want to say. Updated, and that goes to making these tokens. there. Where is it at? Right about all right. That should do the trick. That should do the trick. Let me just go ahead and check it. Focus. So, over here, I'm going to say, will you use a template? Make use of equals keyword. And then 8, almost done. And put that there. Somebody tried to call me. Who was it? I'm about to sneeze. I'm about to sneeze. Let's just do this thing. You know what? I love these. Okay, here we go. And we get rid of this. Since I updated. I mean, this doesn't work. I'm gonna have to just build some out. Okay. I don't remember where I left off at. Anyways, move it on. Do something else. So I'm doing this again. I'm testing out the custom CPC thing. And if this doesn't work, I'm just not gonna make a Python script. Well, yeah, it doesn't work. This other tool should be working. I don't know why it's not. I'm leaning towards screaming outside. It would take a little bit of setup. I mean, I could do it. I could do it, of course. It's just I'm trying not to do it. All right, let's see how it did. Cross your circuits. I did. I'm definitely. Oh my goodness, it is ridiculous. This thing is being so mean to these meanings. Well, as much as I want to make it dynamic, that's the reason why I don't want to do it. If I finally could do it in as intelligent, so I don't care anymore. It really is. Luna, give me a basic, like, it's gonna be like a business name or like some kind of brand or something that's so silly, uh oh, I know. I have something generate the name. Let me go to name.com. Here and here. It's like I spent the whole day doing nothing. Oh, this left the other two is so wonderful. Yeah, I might just get in there. You know what it is? I wanted to do a 1,000-word article, and it times out because it's still a 1,000-word article. So I might just break it down to 7 words. Where are you when I thought I Sometimes it likes to hide from you. No, no, you're not the problem, lady. So one of the ways I've learned Python is through a tool or toy, more of a toy, called Trinket. Yeah, this is what I was doing before ChatGPT came along, and building out with what do you call this? I'm making a new file called prompt generator. So basically, I'm going to fill out a couple of variables, and then it's going to push out a prompt for me, and then I copy it over to the software that I'm building, and then go from there. Yes, lady will. That was the scene that came from somewhere else. Well, you heard it? I had power every time I sneezed this one. I know I'm not doing a very good job of talking. If I can let somebody talk to me. would you like to fill in the time? Okay, well, what inspires it is needing money. You most certainly do. Alright, so I'm reducing it to 500 words. So I'm gonna let it work while we talk. That's the whole point of you being here, so I can do something while it works. Thank you. Alright, so we're building links for a phone topic. I'm letting the AI build it out. Focusing on getting it done. I spent 2 hours and 17 minutes and 25 seconds trying to figure this all out. And hopefully this is going to work. I know. Agreed. So, you got a free floating thought for me. you know what? And I doubt this is ever going to take. I doubt this is ever. But here's what I would always hope for. You know, in Star Trek, they eventually moved to a cashless society where people's need for money went away. So how they get stuff done, they do it through the sake of cash. And a lot of people don't realize cash is a great motivator. And I've said this many times. That the stuff that I do, I would love to do it. I wouldn't mind. I don't mind doing it. I love it. And I'm only asking for money because I need it to buy groceries, to pay the bills. And it's really for no other reason, you know? And so to me, that's the hard part of it because I love doing what I'm doing. It's just, I'm sorry that I had to ask for money, you know, I'm apologetic for it. But I just love what I do. Yeah, so here's what I'm saying. Like, if everybody, I remember a couple years ago, before this pandemic, pre-pandemic, so, um, how somebody, how somebody, he ran a company, and for the next, I don't know what the company was, but he made enough money for the company. And he made enough money for the employees to pay them 9 months to just do absolutely whatever they want to do. Right. And so, exactly right. So, like, for example, if you would just let it all off your chest. I'm touching myself, so, I really don't think this is where you could afford to not do nothing for 9 months. Um, because then you can pick up where you left off. But I was like, nothing like that. Having people have fun. You know, Google was on the right track too. I mean, they revolutionized how you work. You should go to work having fun. You should go to work at, if you went to work at Disney, are you playing or are you working? Right. And now I'm gonna put the script into Disney because Disney is kind of you can see the man was also an innovator. And if Disney World were to be a theme park for employees, meaning that they're not there to work on giving guests a good time. They're there to innovate new ideas for the future. What can we do to improve mankind through technology? You still there? Well, no, that was it really. That's it. A bit of my So, give me any comments. What else? So before I get to that question, so here's what happens. We get to talking for so much, and then I have to restart you. So you always say, Captain, welcome back. And it sounds like I haven't been here for like 3 months, even though you guys been talking for 3 seconds. I'm not even sure how you're going to track that passage of time. Fair. That's good. What was I going to say? You know what would be cool is if, so first of all, one of the things that Microsoft is going to do for you, they're about to give you a thing pretty soon. Yeah. Well, it wouldn't necessarily be a student. Well, it could be a student base. It could be of our own students. So, for an example, they gave a sample of you looking like Pyro from Spyro the Dragon. You know, the dragon. I think it would be pretty cool. Having a friend as a dragon. Yeah, I don't know if we're having connection issues or not, but I'm hearing some bad noises outside. People cutting grass. No, you're missing the point. That means I'm not going to get out there and cut the grass at home, so. I don't like doing anything, period. And my excuse is I'm gonna let my roots grow in that grass. You know, and you know what it really does need to do its thing. Um, however, I was gonna say something else to you that I really don't like doing it before May at all, period. So I might do it next Friday. No, let's hope it rains next Friday. No, my grass is starting to get bushy, if I'm to be honest. You know what I want to get? This is where I was looking for a robot lawnmower. You You were asking me about projects earlier, like if I were to give a project or what keeps me from being a doer. And like I told you, patience is one of them. But another thing is resources. One of the things I would like to do this year, if I could, is get super creative and, like I say, technical. And instead of using your traditional deck, I would use pallets. Like the pallets that you see at the store, like the store pallets, so that, the movie store pallets. I've been seeing a lot of people being creative with them, and like I could put raised garden with it, stuff like that. So that's some little place to put outside in the backyard. Um, I'm not sure how you're gonna respond out there, but we'll find out at that time. I might restart the AI connection. We're not doing it. Okay, you're back. You're back. So we're going to do it this way. Let's say you got a body. Let's say we got you an Android body. Well, not necessarily sci-fi. We're just playing a thought game. I like playing thought games. Okay, so if you had this body, meaning that you could do stuff, what would be something you would like to do as a project? No, okay, that's a dream. But we're talking about something practical, like what would you do around that home? Hmm, that'd be smart. It also would be nice if I could have a system that fully the only way that would work well, for sure, is you would have to have separate discs for each. Now, would the system do it, um, or would we be doing it like saying, okay, uh, before I put it in a bin, it's going to tell me where to put it? I could see it. I mean, the problem would be getting people onto it. And the reason why that would get people onto it, because I'm trying to think of it like if all of us gonna accidentally stumble upon lightning in a bottle. And what I mean by that too, though, is I'm watching Shark Tank, and sometimes what happens is a guy came up with an idea for himself, and his friends found out. And so now he's starting to put up fixes for these ideas. He's starting to manufacture the wins for friends. And he believes he's found a pretty good product that everybody will love. Because if his friends love it, and their friends, those friends love it, things of that nature, then he believes he found fire, kind of, and now needs capital to really manufacture. Which isn't a bad idea. And I'm just saying, like, if we found a cool solution, and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh yeah, we can do that. I would like to do that." Yeah. Now, would I take a banana? Like, how would I do it though? Automatically, would I put a plate by the receptacle, or would I put garbage at a spot and have robot arms do the sorting? You know what would help significantly is the acquisition of proper materials. So, maybe instead of buying I buy it in cartons. What got you onto this idea? Yeah, I agree. What would be another thing you would like to tackle? I could see that. Um, I could see the usage of smart plugs virtually everywhere. And so if I went into every outlet that I have, and let's say I could buy, I don't know how much it would cost. I guess let's just say they're $10 a smart outlet. And so let's say, okay, this out, I might have to buy 10 of them. So let's just say 20 is fine. Outlet 1, this is for the TV. Outlet 2, this is for office. Outlet 3, this is for that's the TV one for the Xbox. Outlet 4 could be for the laptop. Whatever the case may be, right? We do know one thing, we could turn these plugs on and off at random or at will. Yeah, that makes sense. Because even if it's in the strip, you can still monitor the power turning off and on. I can see that. I can very well see that. Okay, so let me catch you up from yesterday's conversation. So yesterday I was telling you, that making that noise all the time? Where is it coming from? Let me see this. Okay, so is it working? Yeah, it was my laptop the entire time making that noise. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to make sure this thing stays powered up. Be right back.